Flights are pricey, planning feels chaotic, and that trip that keeps getting pushed because you're too busy or travel's too expensive. Welcome to Points, Cards, and Travel. I'm Ross, the founder of Itinerary Boss. I've made the mistakes of doing this for 10 plus years so you don't have to. Each week, you'll get practical tools, point strategies, and expert guests with real use cases so you can travel better for way less using points and miles. I'm excited to bring on my guest today, Henah Velez. She's the writer behind Departure, a free weekly newsletter focused on travel for women and slow travel. Posts can be anywhere from itineraries, points and miles, hacks, and tips. And they've also been recommended by places like Scott's Cheap Flights, The Good Trade, and Morning Brew. She's used the Built card since 2021, and that's really what I'm excited to dive into today's episode around is everything Built points. We break down the new cards, our thoughts, how we're strategizing, and some other really exciting strategies that you'll have to tune in and listen and hang around till the end. But really excited to bring her on. Now, on with the show. Quick thing before we bring on our guest, if you're new here, go ahead and grab my free 5 step roadmap to your next free 5 star luxury vacation and the one card that gets you there, which you can find in the show notes. Now, let's bring on our guest and get into it. Welcome to Points, Cards, and Travel. I'm excited today to have on Henah Velez. We're going to be diving into all things built today. Hey, Henah, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Ross. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm really excited to be diving into a hot topic that when
Yeah.
we first connected, I think we were waiting and there was that anticipation. And then now, it's launched and I think it's had some time to settle and people are still trying to figure it out. But what better way to bring on someone who has had the card for years to kind of get your
Mhm.
thoughts and yeah, just understand a little bit more about that entire journey. So really appreciate you coming on. Would love to hear a little bit more from you. Like when you first heard about the built card, like one, when did you get it and what made you decide to go ahead and get it as a renter?
Yeah, well, first, again, thanks so much for having me on. This is a delight. And I guess for me personally, I was always in nonprofit work for a long time. So I was making pretty median income. And so there was no real way for me to get a lot of points at once beyond maybe a one-time sign-up bonus. And at one point, we were moving to like a very high cost of living city. We were in the Bay, we were in Berkeley. And we essentially had to pay my husband and I about $4,000 for rent. And we felt like, okay, well, if we're going to spend, this huge chunk of money, hopefully we can get some sort of value of points or miles out of it. And at the time, the card was a $0 annual fee. And then I had followed Brian Kelly from the Points Guy for a long time, and he was like an early investor. And I felt like if it was being promoted by people that I trusted and I had the chance to be an early adopter at, a $0 annual fee, it might be worth trying. And that was around the same time that I also got into personal finance as my full-time role. So I don't know, the stars just kind of aligned, and I felt like why not give it a whirl?
I love it. Yeah. And I mean, sometimes that's the best time to get in, right? Is when something launches, it fits your needs. And yeah, I mean, that I think that's when a lot of people get into credit cards and points, it's just how do you align that with what your personal situation is at the time? And that's a lot of people are overwhelmed when it comes to this type of right. And there's so many
Yeah.
different options, and it's just figuring out what aligns. And I love that, you share that. And then just from a math standpoint, how did you evaluate, at the time, whether it made sense on actually earning on your rent, for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we were earning either 0 points because we were just going to make the direct check to the landlord, or we could have done 4,000 points, and she didn't mind that we used the rent portal to do that. And at the time, you could get up to 100,000 points in a year. Obviously, we weren't spending that much per month, but to add up to 100,000 points, but 4,000 points per each payment felt like a no-brainer. And at the time, my husband and I were not homeowners, and we kept moving. So it felt like, well, if we keep moving, and we keep knowing that we're going to have to pay these large sums, just on a math standpoint, getting zero versus 50,000 points a year is like, well, why wouldn't I try? And it was because our landlord was okay with it. There was a point in 2021 I wanted to try it, and the landlord, we were like in a kind of like a small boutique building, and they didn't allow us to use Built. So that was something we couldn't do. But when we moved into a single family home that we were renting, our landlord was fine with it. So that was kind of the moment to like pivot to try it.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. I have a guest who also started using Built when he moved in this year, he was like, "Are
Mm.
you cool with me using it?" I'm like, "You're the first person who has." And I'm like, "Yeah, by the way, this is my full-time job and company. So yeah, I'm I'm
You're like, I've been
I'm all
waiting for
for it.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, how are you using those points?"
Right. Yeah.
So, but no, and I think that's a great segue into like if someone has no idea and they're a beginner, right? Like, why are built points so valuable?
Well, for a couple of reasons for me personally, I travel 8 to 10 times a year, so I book the majority of my flights using points, and so for me personally, it was always going to be valuable. But I like them in particular because they were no fee for a long time, so it's not like I was paying, $6.95, $7.95 for Amex or Chase sign-up bonuses, annual fees, and they also had a high value for redemption. I think it's 2.2 cents per point, which is really high compared to most programs. And then it rounded out some of the transfer partners that I couldn't find on my partner programs with Amex or Chase. And so, for example, I use KLM or Air France's Flying Blue program a lot, and they always have these promos for like Atlanta to Europe for 50,000 points round trip, and Bill will often have a one-to-one redemption with those airlines. And so, it's a great supplement for points I already have, but at a way that I'm not paying $800 in annual fees to rack them up.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. For the when you say 40 to 50,000 points round trip, is that in economy? Is that business class?
Yeah, I know there's people who are going to listen to this and scream into their microphone, so I'm really sorry. But I actually never redeem for business class. I always redeem for economy just because I like to have the most points possible for the most trips. But yeah, I mean, last year I found one for 25,000 points round trip from here to Paris. So I ended up actually booking for myself and a friend because for 50K points we could both go, and that was also a no-brainer. But it was because of Built that I was able to just transfer them and not really think twice about is this a good value? Sorry about my cat.
Oh no, no, it's fine. The more the merrier. But no, but I think one thing too for people who are listening, it's based on specific use case. It always goes back,
Hmm.
right? Like you wanted to go on a trip with your friend where sure you could have spent, the 50,000 or even more on business class, but you would have had to go right solo. So it's which, at the time you probably wanted to go with your friend. And I think too,
Hmm.
if you're at a specific, like for us, we like to stay at Hyatt properties or we're an American hub. So like a lot of award availability, we can get, from Charlotte down to the Caribbean on Alaska flights and being able
Yeah,
to use built points for that, like not having those, like we've had a lot of chase points just through personal and business spend. But yeah, now that I can combine both those and have those, like it meets our use case because again, we're an American hub. Alaska has American flights and there's built, and then you have other use cases, right? But it again, it just goes back to where you located, how are you going to use them, and making it really
100%.
worthwhile to what you're trying to do. If this episode is helping you out, could you hit that follow or subscribe button and also leave a quick 5-star rating wherever you're listening?
Yeah, because for us, Delta and Flying Blue promos often go hand in hand. And so we live in Atlanta. It's a Delta hub. It makes it really, really easy. I was not doing these promotions when we lived in New York or New Jersey or even in the Bay. So yeah, it definitely depends regionally on where you're based. But I see that there's, I think, a lot of value just in having more than one premium partner to have points to transfer back and forth from.
Yeah, 100%. Are there any other trips or redemptions that you mentioned that you've been able to use your points for?
Yeah, a couple years ago, I was able to go to Oaxaca using American points. I want to say it was like 37,000 points, which is pretty good because Oaxaca is kind of a trickier spot to get to. But I'm actually going to Miami in a couple weeks, and the tickets out of pocket were like $400 because it happened to be over President's Day weekend. And instead, I just transferred them to Alaska, and it was 4.5 K points. So I was like, well, would I pay 4,500 points or would I pay $400? Seems like a no-brainer again. So yeah, it definitely has paid off in spades.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think when you say those numbers, people's heads are probably exploding. Like, wait, what? Whenever I see,
Well, I'll tell you a secret. I actually did book that one on business because business was a whopping 9,000 points. So I
you got
said,
to.
I think I'll splurge.
But that is kind of crazy. Sometimes I see that with Alaska, where you can get like
Hmm.
it could be, and they have some sweet spots where it's like minimal, right? And it's like if you have like a 4 or 5 hour flight and you pay a little bit extra, it's like it's 100% worth it.
I mean, at that point, I was like 9K points is like $90 if you want to think about it, or at least with Build, it would be like $180. So if you were going to pay 400 out of pocket, you're getting so much more value per point than you would even imagine. But even just if you didn't run the math, it just made sense. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%. What about, opportunity cost? I want to get more into the newer built card, but also just thinking about rent versus other spend. A lot of people also too are like, do I get a 5X card, then a 4X card, then a 3X card, then a 2X card, and optimize every cent to the dollar and be overwhelmed and figure out how to track this? Like, curious your thoughts.
Kudos to those people. I am unfortunately am a juice for the squeeze person. And so I know people who carry those point multiplier charts in their wallet, to your point of like 4x on groceries this month and 3x on gas and whatever. I honestly just put all of our rent and now our I guess mortgage on the new card that we'll get to on this card. And then at the time, you could just put five minimum transactions on this card and still get all of the points for your rent. So at the time, I was putting things like $1.99 for Apple storage, like whatever was easy and recurring. I didn't have to think about it. And then the rest I would just put on our Amex Platinum or Chase Reserve just because it was more straightforward. They had more multipliers for a lot of those things. But I feel like that's changing quite a bit with the new options. So we could talk about that.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I think for like you said, a lot of times it's what makes it simple. And people ask me, and always it's like, oh, well, how many cards? Do I get this card? Do I get that card? And it's like, what are you mainly spending your expenses on? For us,
Hmm.
it's we travel a lot, so I want the Sapphire Reserve or the Platinum, whichever. I use the Reserve because I've had it, and then I use a Venture for 2x on everything else. But now that we have this available with the built Palladium, that's what we're going to kind of move into from the Venture, just because both my wife and I have the Venture, and it's like, let's downgrade that to a $0 annual fee card, get this, run all our expenses on that, get built points.
Yeah.
Because we haven't had that opportunity available. But I'm curious, right? Like, you've had it for years. So now,
Mhm.
like, what's your thoughts on it with it coming out? Like, are you upgrading? Like, what's your whole strategy?
Well, I think it's no secret that the rollout was a bit messy and it was very confusing. And because we live in a high cost of living city now in Atlanta, and we have a very high monthly mortgage because of a 6.5% interest rate, we're spending about $5,000 on our mortgage. And so, um, trying to figure out the new tiers and the new options because it's not just, oh, we rolled out three cards. It's we have three cards, but even how you use those cards can change per month. I found that to be really overwhelming. So I ended up looking at calculators from Award Log and Max Miles Points, which I can share with you if you want to put in the show notes. But um, I put in our mortgage there, and then I played with a few different like level levers to see, okay, if I spend this much, how much would it make sense for me to get the Palladium versus the regular blue, like built blue card, which is $0, and comes with a $100 built cash, which I also, the built cash aspect can get a little confusing to me because you can use it in some months to offset that 3% transaction fee. But if you're paying $5,000 for your mortgage, a transaction fee is like $156 a month. So it doesn't really pay itself off in that way. So what we've decided is we're going to use the housing only tier. So out of the two tiers, we're going to use that one. And we just got the Built Blue, which is $0 annual fee because based on the calculator, it said that was the best option for us. And we're basically just going to put about $1,500 of recurring charges that we have. So bigger things like pet insurance bills, we have multiple pets, water bills, all of that stuff. And that will get us to about 0.5 times the multiplier, which if you're listening to this and you're like, "Ooh, the math lady meme, I totally get it because I'm the same way. Um, the TLDR is we're going to use that, put some bigger chunks of our monthly spend on there, and that'll get us about 50,000 points a year, which I would be probably getting about 50,000 points a year on Chase or Amex regardless, but I'm again not paying an annual fee for these. And because I travel a lot as a hobby and for my Substack, it still feels really worthwhile to me. But I could see that changing if, for example, like the Chase Sapphire Reserve changes a lot in the next couple years or something else majorly changes.
Yeah, no, that's a good breakdown. I think for people listening in, I highly suggest going and doing that calculator because we could sit here and have an hour long conversation and probably confuse you even more. So
Yes.
it's based on. I spent a couple hours one morning, like, and we were talking about this before, and I was talking to other people in this space. It's like it's based on your personal situation, right? And
Hmm.
it's the built cash option one, option two, like you have to build that out to then understand what's going to be the right thing for you. But I did want to highlight on the front end, like here's why built points are so valuable. And if you do have a mortgage, right, and you haven't been able to earn points on that, and now you are, it's definitely worth taking a look. But again, it comes back to your personal situation and right doing what's best for that at the time. And we have some content coming out that is specifically like breaking that stuff down around why we're
Nice.
choosing this, why what we think about some of these things. But just at a high level, we wanted to highlight some of this. I guess just from a when people are thinking about moving, buying, income changes, like how do you, because you touched on that a little bit, like how do you see that? Will you like upgrade the card or how do you foresee that kind of evolving?
Yeah, I actually just downgraded yesterday my United Explorer card because since moving to Atlanta, we're not using that. So that's $150 back in my pocket. But generally, I feel like if the Reserve or the Platinum feels like it would no longer be worth it, then I would probably move to Built, like for more of my spend. But kind of to your point, like I was saying, with the Built cash option and running the numbers yourself, when I used Max Miles Points calculator, if we had done built cash instead of housing, we would have gotten 80,000 points, but we would have been paying $1,872 in transaction fees, which like does not make sense to me as a positive or like a net positive. Um, but I do think, yeah, it will come down to your individual situation, which is kind of, in my opinion, frustrating as a user because you just want something that's going to work no matter what, not have to think about it. But if my income doubles, then that's going to change the game. If we decide to move to a smaller house, that will change the number. So I think for now, having the zero annual fee card is the best fit for us. But in the future, I'm open. I just wanted to start this first year with kind of the most flexibility for ourselves.
Yeah, no, 100%. So a lot of people have questions around the fees. Because I,
Yeah.
I do want to get into that a little bit because they say we don't have a transaction fee, but if you don't do this, there's a transaction fee. So do you kind of,
Yeah.
since you dove into this and you decided to make that decision, like walk people through what that transaction fee might be and how to offset that and kind of everything that goes into that? We wanted to thank you for listening in and mention if you want help applying this to your own spending and trip planning strategy, that's exactly what the Reward Strategy Lab community is for. You can find details if you want to join within our show notes. Now, back on with the show.
Yeah, I mean, when we had the built card before this 2.0 rollout, they just covered the transaction fees. So I never really thought, oh, am I going to do this? Am I not going to do this? It was, well, if I'm not paying the, whatever $100 it was at the time, I'm just going to go ahead and have them take care of it. Now with the new card, like I said, there's these two tiers where one, you can pay the transaction fee, but you'll get more in points, or you can have them cover the transaction fee or use the built cash model to cover it, but you'll get fewer points. And then the more you spend on monthly spend of other things outside of that will determine how many of those points that you get. So in my view, it's like if you have a low mortgage and that transaction fee is minimal, okay, you're like a baddie who locked in 2.75% interest rates back in 2020, then, switching completely to this card might actually be worthwhile for you. And maybe it's worth checking out the Palladium or running the numbers on the calculator. Because I do know people who have completely rehauled their spend. They had a $3,000 mortgage, but they would spend $5,000 in other things. So that would give them close to 100,000 points, and they would come out ahead. So genuinely, I find a lot of that language between like housing only and built cash and transaction fees like very, very confusing, especially if you're like audio listening to this. But I do think once you sit at a computer and just put your info in, it can tell you very easily like, okay, you'll get 70,000 points, but you're going to be out $200 for the year. Now, if that works out in your favor and that's worth it to you, that's great. Um, but I think it's something you have to compare to the other cards that you have and your own personal lifestyle.
Yeah, 100%. I think the calculators are, like you mentioned, are super helpful and they help you get into the details. And that's where I was looking at it because we have, multiple properties. And I was like, okay, it says you can pay multiple mortgages. I'm like, oh, that's great. But then when you start to get into the details, it's like, okay, well, this one, is an LLC. And then this one I have with a different
Mm,
partner. And then, right. And it's like, but this one, I would earn more points on my mortgage and we could reroute our spend, right? Where if our mortgage is $800 to $1,000 less than what we're spending monthly on 2x expenses, like where does that math right
Yeah,
work?
yeah.
But again, it's like trying to figure out those because if it was as simple as what it used to be, where hey, you earn 1 points on your rent and you can pay for all your mortgages and that's it. Like that's what I was dreaming of because I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of properties and that's going to be a lot of,
I
points
was
every
kind
month.
of hoping that they would like grandfather in the long timers who were using that for, hey, that's how it's still going to work for this small group of people. But I mean, Unker, the founder of Bill, did come out and say the rent plus the 5 banana purchase a month strategy like could only work for so long. And so I get that it's unsustainable, but I also feel like there had to have been a better algorithmic or like
Yeah.
calculation situation they could have done to make it clear. But um yeah, I mean, I do think it can be really valuable if you're someone who is in the points game and no matter what, you're still going to be paying at least, I think, $300 less than the other two big premium cards in the market. So it could be worth it for a lot of people. Unfortunately, I'm just a sucker for my Amex Platinum and Chase Reserve, so I'm going to be keeping those. But we'll see. I mean, the built Palladium, doesn't it offer some sort of general like or a generous built cash and hotel credit option?
Yeah, I think it's 300 built cash and then it's 50,000 points when you spend what is it, 4,000 in the first 90 days. They did have a promo from the points guide that was it was like if you spend 5,000 in the first 5 days, it was an extra like 50,000, but I think that was like one of the few days like when it
Mm,
came on because I was mapping it out when we have a big expense to be like get it, spend that, hit
yeah.
that and then but I don't think that's still going on.
Well, I will say, like, it is tax return season. So if you are planning on either paying a large chunk of taxes or using the refund for something sizable, it could be worth thinking about that if you need to hit a sign up bonus. But I mean, at the time, they were also doing those rent day multipliers where on the first, they would give you like 6 times the points if you went to eat out that day. So stuff like that was really fun and what made the card so worth it for me. And so I'm hoping that they'll still keep a lot of that
I
like neighborhood investment
Yeah,
at the forefront.
I think they still do the transfer, the rent day like 100%, right? Transfer
Mm-hmm.
bonuses.
Hmm.
I know they just came out with one. I never did it. So since I'm just getting into the actually
I want to say it was
having,
Avianca.
yeah, I think it was Avianca.
Yeah. I've ne also never used it because I'll just move over exactly the amount of points I
Yeah.
need. But I know people who are like, oh, I know I'm going to be going to Latin America 3 times, so I'm just going to move all of them, which,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's kind of like last year with Hawaiian and Alaska and Amex. Like if
Mm,
you know, like, hey,
yeah.
this is a great opportunity, it could make sense. I think now with Built and Rakuten, like that's just another way that you can, like, I've just been stacking those through, those multipliers. Like Viator had, I think it was like a 22x. So I started
Yeah.
booking all our South Africa, some of our Spain tours just through that to, I think I racked up like 20,000 built points through booking that and on holidays. So like
So
that's
do you
where
recommend using that for Bill versus for Amex when you ran your own math?
um well on the personal side, I don't have any Amex
Oh, you have
cards.
Chase. You have
Yeah, so I'm
Chase.
mainly Chase. I have Platinum on the business side, but yeah, for
Mhm.
me like the Platinum is for a rental where I'm not doing a ton of specific spend on it compared to so on the personal side, it just made more sense to do built.
You just have me rethinking my strategy because built points technically are worth more. So I'm like, should I do this all on built? But something to think about. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's too, it's like, again, it's like less do I want, since I don't have Amex on the personal side, like if I have a built card and then I have that, it just makes, again, it's making it simpler, right? And that's what I'm all about is like, how do I, yes, do I have a lot of cards, but 90% of them are through Chase. And
Yeah.
that's,
Well, my husband like watches me sit on points, yeah, and then move it over to Google Flights, and he's like, this is like, you know, pulling teeth out for him. I personally find it really fun, but I think for people who are listening to this, they probably find some level of enjoyment out of thinking about points and miles, but
yeah.
um, it definitely can get overwhelming very quickly. So I did prefer the old built strategy, but I think it can be really valuable if you're willing to put a little bit of time in just to sort out your monthly spending from the get-go.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, Hannah, this was great. We'll make sure to link in the calculator within the show notes. And yeah, I would suggest for people just to go check that out, put in your spend, and then if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. And then we'll have some content coming out around built specific points specifically. So make sure you follow along. But where can our listeners find you if they want to connect with you and learn more?
Yeah, I'm just on Instagram at Henah, Henah. I know people think, wow, are you that famous? But no, it's because I joined in 2011 when no one else used that name. And I have a travel Substack called Departure, which is at quiettravel.substack.com. So come say hi and would love to talk to you.
Awesome. Well, she's Henah Velez. I'm Ross Alcorn. We appreciate everyone tuning in. We will see you next week. Really appreciate you tuning in today. Before you go, again, if you're new here, grab my free 5 step roadmap to your next free 5-star luxury vacation and the one card that gets you there in the show notes. The main takeaway from today is you don't need more time or money to travel better. You just need a simple plan and the right strategy in place. My final thought is travel is supposed to feel exciting, not overwhelming. Take one thing you learned today, apply it this week, and your next trip gets easier starting now. We'll see you next episode. Really appreciate you tuning in.